Yo, what's up YouTube? It's the one and only Legend Winning, aka Low, and I'm back with another episode of the NBA Preview. Now for those out there who missed the last episode, as always there will be an annotation in the top right hand corner, link in the description, and if you watch the video in its entirety, you already know the rest. Let's go ahead and just get into this video. Now, coming in at number 9, we have the Washington Wizards. Last year, the Washington Wizards started off extremely slow, however bounced back after phenomenal performances from not only John Wall, but surprisingly Bradley Beal. Bradley Beal had a really solid season. I am a little bit disappointed, and it is unfortunate that he was not named an All-Star. However, if he's able to keep up that level of play, he obviously will move forward in that direction. Also, Otto Porter last year had a pretty solid year as well. Bounced back from poor performances throughout his first couple of years in the NBA and came through with shooting splits that were phenomenal. Because of the performances of those three key players, along with some other solid pieces such as Morris and Gortat in the starting lineup, the Washington Wizards, despite their slow start in the beginning of the season, ended with a record of 49 wins and actually found themselves in the second round of the playoffs, pushing the first seeded Boston Celtics to a Game 7. Now, unfortunately, the Washington Wizards, especially John Wall, really didn't perform that well in that Game 7. But when it comes to some of these younger teams, experience is what really counts. Some of these players really showed out, especially Otto Porter. I was quite surprised how consistently of a scorer he was in the post, and he was pretty good on the boards as well, especially for someone who was playing the small forward position. They found a couple of more rotations and some more lineups they could run, especially because last year their bench was a little thin, and so that was also a good learning experience for these young core players with this team, and hopefully moving forward they can build off of this, especially players such as John Wall and Bradley Beal. And actually, speaking of John Wall, that brings us to our summer social media for our clip of the day.
What up, people? This is John Wall, just checking in, letting y'all know. I know I wasn't going nowhere. Re-signed with the Wizards, man. Signed my extension. You know where I want to be. I love being in DC. I love the organization. Love my teammates. Love the amazing fans. Y'all know what I'm going for. Definitely gonna bring y'all that championship. That's my ultimate goal, and I ain't gonna stop till I get it.
So shout out to all my Wizards fans, because John Wall, he is staying. I'm not gonna lie, for a second I was a bit concerned, again, especially because in the beginning of the season y'all was starting off a little slow. So obviously this was a storyline that a lot of people were talking about over the past couple of months, but John Wall, he killed all the noise, sat down with the ownership and the management, and had a little conversation about that bag he was supposed to receive. And because he was an All-NBA player last year, and the Washington Wizards, they are the team that drafted him, he qualified for that Super Max. So congrats to you. Now for clarification, no, because I know a lot of people have a hard time understanding this, he technically did not sign a new contract, he just signed an extension. So the last 2 years of his other contract that he was still on, he still has to go through that, and then after those last 2 years of his contracts, then his extension will kick in, and he'll be making that bag. He'll be making that real money. And actually, we'll talk about that a little bit more in details. Let's go ahead and transition to our contracts and our depth chart. When it comes to our contracts, John Wall with the 4-year, $170 million extension. Then we have Otto Porter with the 4-year, $106.5 million contract. Jodie Meeks with a 2-year, $7 million deal, which is a solid bench player. And shout out to my man Mike Scott and Donald Salone with 1-year deals as well. Then when it comes to overpaid players, we have Otto Porter, who will be receiving $24.8 million. And let me knock out the expirings real quick. Expiring contracts, Kelly Oubre, he is on a team option though, so keep that in mind. And also Tim Frazier, Mike Scott, and everyone else who signed 1-year deals. Now going back to the overpaid players though real quick, Otto Porter getting paid $24.8 million. Now, kudos to the Brooklyn Nets, because they did something that's extremely smart, and I wouldn't be too surprised if other teams start doing this. And if I'm not mistaken, the Dallas Mavericks also did this last year when they threw a max contract at Harrison Barnes, even though we all know that Harrison Barnes and Otto Porter, they're not max contract type of players. And that contract that Otto Porter received, and the contract that the Washington Wizards are now going to have to pay Otto Porter, in the long run, it may actually hurt them significantly. At some point, you just got to say like, nah, we not paying that. We just not paying you that much money. But hey, I digress. Let's go ahead and transition to the depth chart. In the starting backcourt, we obviously have John Wall, Bradley Beal, one of the greatest backcourt duos in the NBA. Otto Porter at the 3, Morris at the 4, and then Gortat at the 5. And now moving on to the bench, which was a problem last year, and it's still a little bit of a problem this year as well. The lack of bench depth on this team is really concerning. Jodie Meeks, Kelly Oubre, I guess Tim Frazier, Jason Smith, Mahimi, not too many solid players. I'm assuming that Kelly Oubre is going to give you a little bit of that flex forward action, give you a little bit of that 3 in that power forward position, filling up both forward spots, which is another huge problem with this team. Is not that much flexibility with these lineups. Really, Otto Porter and Kelly Oubre are probably the only 2 players who can play multiple positions, but they've been able to find a way to really have it work out. And shout out to Scott Brooks, because he turned this team around and he knew exactly what needed to be done. And I'm actually surprised how long it took him, because for the most part, in my opinion, and some people, you know, they have their thoughts on it, but John Wall plays a very similar style to Russell Westbrook, so I thought he would be able to capitalize it sooner than later, but he still was able to turn around and aid John Wall in the process of being the player that he is right now. And hopefully he'll be able to turn it up one more season, which is why he is our spotlight player of the day. John Wall is a 6'4" point guard, came out of University of Kentucky, and in the 2010 draft class, he was the first overall pick. And over the course of his career, he's been having trouble trying to find himself, especially when it comes to the balance of being a scorer while still being able to facilitate properly. But last year, he found his identity, found his way, and dominated it in a way that you quite honestly rarely see in the NBA. Now, unfortunately for John Wall, last year was a bit an anomaly because Russell Westbrook and James Harden, with the amount of triple doubles that they were recording. But if you take the time out and look at the historic context, John Wall last year averaging 23 points, 10 to 11 assists, and nearly 2 steals is something that just doesn't happen in the NBA on a day-to-day basis. And yet John Wall, to his credit, has slowly but surely been building to this point of his career where he can be a consistent 20 and 10 guy on a night-to-night basis. When it comes to the defensive end, I would love to see him focus a lot more, especially when it comes to man-on-man, and not gamble too much. He's a solid rebounder for his position as well, and obviously his greatest attribute is him able to just cross you up, blow right by you, and finish around the rim in multiple ways. And it took him some time, again, like I said before, to get to this stage in his career, but I'm happy he got to this stage because I think a lot of people were really concerned about him. However, last year turned it around, added to his game, and played an elite level, was an All-NBA player, All-Star, and a lot of people are questioning, similar to Giannis, can he eventually get to that status of being an MVP player? Now, honestly, he can play at that stage, but I don't necessarily think he's going to win the MVP. But just like I said in my last video, in my opinion, the MVP is a bit overstated. As long as you're able to add to your game and continue to develop, who really cares? D-Wade never won an MVP himself, but he has multiple championships, and that's really the end goal, is to become a title contender. And when it comes to John Wall, I personally feel as if he's a great enough point guard. Matter of fact, he's just a great enough player to lead a team to a championship. So in my opinion, when it comes to John Wall, just become a little bit more efficient when it comes to shooting the ball, especially in the half-court setting. Also, that mid-range shot 2 years ago, I saw it pretty consistently. Last year was a little shaky, so make sure you keep adding that, especially around that elbow jumper coming off that screen with Marcin Gortat. I really like that move that you show. But man, John Wall, he is phenomenal. One of the greatest point guards in the NBA right now, which is saying a lot. Third best player in the Eastern Conference, which again may not be saying a lot until you realize that the other two are more likely LeBron and Giannis. And if he continues to develop and grow as an individual player, I can definitely see him carrying this franchise to the next step and actually making it to the conference finals, because if they're able to add another piece of this team, I could easily see them knocking off some of these other teams I have ahead of them outside of the Cleveland Cavaliers. But with that being said, it actually transitions to our Twitter question of the day. Shout out to my man Marco, because he asked, along with a lot of people asked this question as well, do you think the Wizards will have a chance to get Boogie when he becomes a free agent? Now, let me make this extremely clear, and I don't mean to be extremely harsh, but let me be just really clear on this. There's absolutely, positively no way that they can just outright sign DeMarcus Cousins because of the financial situation that they are in due to them signing Otto Porter. Now, with that out of the way, let me explain. This upcoming season, with the 3 players, Otto Porter, John Wall, and Bradley Beal, we're talking about $66 million being spent on those 3 players, and the salary cap is roughly around $99 million. The next year, when Boogie is actually a free agent, we're talking about Otto Porter, Bradley Beal, John Wall again, $70 million. Salary cap is going to be roughly around 101 to 105 million. Don't quote me on that because these are all off projections that I've seen. But as you clearly can see, Otto Porter still the highest paid player, and John Wall's contract, his real money, that Supermax contract, hasn't kicked in yet. So then in the third year, when that money does kick in, we're talking about Otto Porter, still getting paid more than Bradley Beal. Then you got Bradley Beal, then John Wall with a $37.8 million contract that year, $92 million. And the salary cap is going to be the highest I've seen the salary cap for that season is $107 to $108 million. So yeah, that much money being spent on just those 3 core players. So when it comes to just signing DeMarcus Cousins, absolutely no way that he can actually do it. Now, when it comes to trading for DeMarcus Cousins, that's a different story. I don't necessarily believe that the Pelicans are that desperate to go out and trade for Otto Porter. And I would even go as far as saying they're not that desperate to trade for Bradley Beal, because they could possibly just trade DeMarcus Cousins to the Cavaliers or the Boston Celtics and receive a draft pick in return. So I don't necessarily know where they are at when it comes to, assessing their assets to trade DeMarcus Cousins. But again, let me be clear, because I've seen this numerous times, and I want to be completely clear about this. There's absolutely, positively no way that they can sign DeMarcus Cousins. They would have to trade for DeMarcus Cousins, which is why I said in the beginning of the video that Otto Porter contract is a real problem, and it's more likely going to hurt them in the long run because Otto Porter just isn't that great of a player. And because of that contract developing with a salary cap situation, unfortunately, I can only see this team at best maxing out at the conference finals. Regardless if LeBron decides to stay in the East or go to the West, I just don't see them being deep enough, talented enough to compete with some of the other elite teams that I have ahead of them, unless they are able to add some depth on their team or add another star player on their roster, and that's DeMarcus Cousins. And again, unless they're willing to trade Bradley Beal or Otto Porter, I don't really see how that's going to be able to happen. But please let me know what you think about the Washington Wizards in the comment section below. John Wall, Bradley Beal, and Otto Porter as well. Also, if you enjoy the series, make sure you hit the subscribe button and notification bell as I upload daily. Hit the thumbs up, and I'll see you all tomorrow. Peace.